Hey guys, so I need to unload this half of beef that we just got. Um, we're working on slowly sending in the majority of my grandparents' beef cattle and to butcher, and we brought back one half of the younger bull that we had out on pasture. He was only about 18 months old, so he'll still be good and tender. Um, so I'll just kind of show you guys what we got in case you're not aware of what you get with a half of beef. Now, what you get with a half an animal or a whole animal really depends on what your family uses, and we'll talk more about that. I'll do a video where I'll sit down with you guys and go over beef and which cuts you can ask for and which cuts, you'll lose if you ask for other cuts. And we'll also talk about that with pork because I've been selling halves and wholes of animals and livestock for a really long time. So I guide my customers through their cut sheet. I usually don't have them fill it out themselves unless they're well-seasoned customers. So I'll show you what we got and kind of go through what we use, each cut for. Some of them are pretty obvious, like a chuck steak is used as a chuck steak. I know a lot of people don't like chuck steaks. They're not like tough, but they're not the most tender. But we like a chuck steak because it usually has good marbling and good flavor. So that's actually the first thing I pulled out. Now, this beef could have had better marbling. This is not our best marbling by any means. It's still decent, but we have had better. Now, he was still a bull, so sometimes that takes a little bit of the marbling away as far as the meat. And also, he spent the last few months not on grain. He was just on pasture and on hay. So that will take away some of your marbling too, depending on what you're feeding out for grass and hay. And here they were getting fed pretty basic stuff. So marbling depends a lot on feed. And so I did just pull out a chuck Delmonico steak. And as you can see, there's some fat lines in there. But we've had much more fat lines in these before out of something that was on grain the last few months of its life. But he was young and he was living the good life, so this will be still nice and tender and flavorful. Now, all we have here at the new house, because we're at the new house right now, and as you can see, I haven't painted this wall yet at all. All we have here is this little chest freezer. Our other freezer is still over at the other house. That'll be coming over tonight or tomorrow. We did lose our biggest freezer. It was really old. It was actually my great-grandparents' freezer, and it just shut off. It stopped working. It was like 50 years old. So that sucks because we use a lot of freezers. So we'll definitely need to be looking for another freezer. We like to buy used because usually you can buy a used freezer well cheaper than you can buy it new at the store, and you still get quite a few years out of them. Like I said, that one was like 50 years old. So, so all we have to work with today is this, but that's fine because this is all that's going in here right now. When that other freezer comes over, we'll sort it together, and I'll show you how I sort my freezers. But we will need another freezer before like vegetable and fruit season. So I'm just going to there's a lot of ground beef. There's only 4 boxes. This half weighed 255 hanging, and you get 60 to 65% of your carcass back in actual cuts. So we have 4 boxes here, a lot of ground beef. This will be our ground beef and sausage freezer because there's not a problem to dig through a chest freezer to get sausage and ground beef. So those things will stay in here. I'm going to put steaks and whatnot. Steaks in particular, I'm going to put in these 2 bags so that I know where they are, and I can sort them once we get the other freezer over here. And then everything else will kind of just be thrown in here, and I'll do my best. I'll have to sort them all out when I get the other freezer here. Now, this is a cut that I meant to tell them I didn't want, and I forgot. The London broil steak, I'd rather have that either as a roast or just in ground beef, but that's okay because I can cook this in the Instant Pot or nice and slow, and we can make it tender. It's just one of those cuts that's just not quite as tender and ideal for steak. The London broil and like the top round steaks. So I forgot to tell them that I wanted this in roast form. That's okay. The other thing I can do with this is I can slice it super, super thin and do shaved steak for steak bombs and whatnot like that. So it's okay. We'll still work with it, but I did mean to tell them that I didn't want this. Soup bones. Do not pass up on your soup bones when you buy a half or a whole cow. You guys don't do it, especially if it's a beef breed cow. Now, this was a Hereford Angus. We raise actual beef breeds. This was a Hereford Angus bull. So, the soup bones, man, he was only 18, 19 months old. And look at the amount of meat on this soup bone. Okay? That's the bone. The rest is meat. Do not pass up on your soup bones. I've had customers say, well, I don't think we'll use them. And I'm like, yes, you will. I will send you how to use them. You want these. Unless you use a ridiculous amount of ground beef, which I mean, some people do. These are gold, you guys, because you can get soup, pulled beef, all of those things. Plus, you can cook down these bones and get yourself some bone broth, all in the same process. I will do a full video on how I process these coming up soon. We have some sirloin tips. You know, we got all of your basic steak cuts. That's another London broil. Sirloin tips, more sirloin tips. New York sirloin steak. So all of your basic steak cuts. And then, of course, stew meat, which is good for stew. So this was what I wanted with the top round. Sometimes they cut it into steaks if you don't tell them not to. And I wanted this bad boy. We love, and I'll have to do a video for you guys because it's so good. We love a seared and then slowly roasted beef roast topped with mushroom gravy. It served with some roasted vegetables. It's one of our favorite meals. It happens a lot in the wintertime, so we may not have it as much more going into the summer. That's okay, because these guys will just sit in the freezer and wait for it to be cold out when we want those warm comfort meals. This is the eye round roast. So blade steak, I really like it. I enjoy it. Paul does not, and here's why. Blade steak has it's super tender. It's really, really yummy steak. But it has this line of cartilage that goes right down the middle of the steak. So this is 4 little blade steaks, and they each will have this line of cartilage that goes right down the middle. So you either need to cook these super slow or super quick in an Instant Pot and get that cartilage nice and soft. Or you can cook it like a regular steak and just deal with the cartilage and cut around it, which sometimes I do. I'll take out a package of these and I'll use it for a couple of my lunches because nobody else likes to deal with them. And then I can have steak for lunch, and I'm okay with dealing with the cartilage because it's tender and it's yummy. We got a flat iron steak. I will probably use this for steak fajitas. This, the hanger steak, all of that, those thin, smaller steaks. They're tender and they're yummy, but they're thin, they're little. So great for fajitas and stuff of that nature. And then this is how we have our Hamburg package. It just comes in a 1 pound package. Our butchers, most of the butchers in our area do use vacuum sealing, which I prefer because it stays better longer. My grandparents use a different butcher than I do. Both butchers do a good job. I love mine. It's like an hour and a half one-way drive, though. It's a pretty far drive. But man, sending them a pig, they do a phenomenal sausage and phenomenal smoking compared to everybody else in the area. But we have started doing completely our own animals. So we'll show you guys the next time. We've done 3 pigs now, so we'll try to show you guys the next pig we do. But so hopefully we won't be really using butchers anymore except for the animals that we sell in halves and wholes. So beef suet is what you would use to make beef tallow. And I've never done that. I do lard all of the time, but I've never made tallow. And I might experiment with that this year because we both have terribly dry hands from all the work outside that we do and all that stuff. So I might be playing with this year. Here's another do not pass up. I don't know if all butchers offer this. Mine too do, the one that my grandparents use and the one that we use. Dog bones. These guys call it dog bones. I think the butcher that I use just calls it bones or whatever. Yes, you can give these to your dogs. Our dogs love them. They do get a couple of them, especially True, where she lives outside. But yeah, this is your bone broth bones right here, guys. Look at all of that phenomenal. You guys know what that's called. Marrow. There we go. Look at all that bone marrow. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 bags of these bones, and so that's gonna make a lot of phenomenal beef bone broth for our shelf, for our pantry shelf. And I'll probably do that closer to wintertime when we use broth the most. So we got the other freezer here. So you guys can see I took the steaks out of that chest freezer, put them in here. Those are actually breakfast burritos. And all the steaks, these are all, this is all pork up here from a pig that we just butchered. But all of the steaks are on this middle shelf so that they're not mixed in with all of the burger in the chest freezer. So yeah, thank you guys for stopping by. I hope this helped you out if you're going into getting a beef half or a beef whole sometime soon. It is well worth it. I love stocking up the freezer with whole or half animals. And we will chat soon. Happy homesteading.